Okay, imagine this picture for a moment. There's a 15-year-old boy, let's call him Marcus. He's in juvenile detention, and he already has a criminal record. So when you hear that, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Maybe, troubled kid. Or maybe something about making bad choices. But what if? What if there's something else going on, a story hidden underneath, something much deeper? What if what we're seeing isn't really the whole picture? Today we're doing a deep dive. We've got some materials here that focus on Marcus's life, and they bring up something really critical, something often missed. FASD. That's fetal alcohol spectrum disorder.
Right. And our mission here with this deep dive is really to pull out the key insights from these sources you've shared. We want to challenge those common ideas about troubled kids, and maybe shed some light on where the systems, well, where they drop the ball sometimes. Hopefully by the end, you'll have a much clearer picture of the real roots of some of these complex behaviors, getting way past those simple labels.
Okay, perfect. So, with that mission set, let's jump into Marcus's situation. 15 years old, juvenile detention, got a record. But the thing that really stood out to me in these sources, it was startling, was that he only got diagnosed with FASD last year. That's 14 years. 14 years for something so crucial to be missed. What do these materials tell us about why? Why did it take so long? What are the roadblocks here?
Well, that's exactly it. That's where you really see the systemic blind spots, I guess.
Yeah.
What comes through loud and clear from this material is that Marcus wasn't just being, rebellious. His early actions, they stem directly from brain damage caused by alcohol exposure before he was even born.
Yeah.
It's not about him choosing to be difficult. It's neurological. That's fun.
It's neurological.
It's important to get specific here. FASD, it often hits things like executive function. That's the brain's command center. Planning, impulse control, and also how you read social situations. So what looks like defiance might actually be someone genuinely struggling to understand the rules or stop themselves from doing something impulsive.
Okay, so when you use the term neurodevelopmental disorder, just to make sure everyone's on the same page, what's the core idea?
Yeah, good question. Basically, it means a condition that comes from differences in how the brain actually developed. And that affects things like learning, behavior, social interaction. The key thing is it emphasizes these aren't conscious choices. They're differences in brain wiring that shape how someone sees the world and reacts to it.
Wow, okay, that completely reframes it, doesn't it? So if it wasn't defiance, what did those early signs look like for Marcus? The sources mentioned, even as a toddler, he was just incredibly impulsive. And then school, he just couldn't sit still. And his teachers, they labeled him defiant. That word, it carries so much weight.
It absolutely does. And you think about the snowball effect of a label like that, right? Once you're seen as defiant, everything you do gets interpreted through that lens. It's almost impossible for a kid to shake that off without someone stepping in and seeing differently.
Yeah.
That impulsiveness, the trouble sitting still, these weren't choices he was making. They were textbook symptoms, really, of this condition that nobody had spotted yet. It just hammers home that his behavior came from the brain damage, not because he wanted to cause trouble. And it makes you ask, doesn't it? How many other kids are out there stuck with the wrong label?
And then you see the path from school struggles straight to, the sources say, on the streets by 12. Well, that's just a heartbreaking path. And you have to ask, where were the off-ramps? Where were the moments someone could have stepped in, asked different questions?
And this is where the materials really point to a profound system failure. It says it right there. Nobody asked the right questions. Nobody saw the root cause.
But, someone might argue, without knowing about FASD, wouldn't those behaviors just look like bad choices? Is it really fair to put all the blame on the system?
That's a fair point, and it's the common view, isn't it? I don't think the material is necessarily about blaming specific teachers or social workers. It's more about highlighting a lack of awareness, maybe a lack of training across the board. The bad choices idea completely misses the neurological reality. And because it misses that reality, the response ends up being punishment, punitive measures, instead of the actual support that was needed.
Which leads us to the really stark outcome here. Marcus is quite literally behind bars. It seems like such a direct, devastating consequence of that failure to see the root cause.
Exactly. And it brings us to what should have happened. The sources are really clear on this. They state quite plainly Marcus should have been in special education and therapy.
Can you unpack that a bit more? What kind of support are we talking about? Is it just about smaller classes, or what does the material suggest actually works for someone with FASD?
Yeah, it's much more than just modified schoolwork. The implication is that for FASD, you need really tailored support,
Mm.
help with executive function, like planning and organizing, specific coaching on social skills, help managing emotions. It often requires very consistent, predictable environments too. And, specialized therapies that actually address the underlying neurological challenges rather than just trying to stamp out the behaviors, the symptoms. It's really about building an environment where a brain that works differently can actually succeed, can thrive.
So what's the big takeaway here for us, for you listening? Marcus's story, it really forces us, I think, to challenge some pretty deep-seated assumptions we might have about kids who act out. This isn't just about one individual kid, is it? It feels like it's about how we view young people more broadly.
Absolutely. And that ties directly into the main call to action that sort of resonates through all these sources. We must change the way we look at troubled kids. And that's not just, a fuzzy call for more empathy. It's a call for actual understanding, for informed action, action based on knowing about conditions like FASD. It's about making the effort to look beneath the surface behavior and ask why. What's the root cause?
Yeah. This deep dive into Marcus's story, it really does shift your perspective. It makes it so clear how understanding something like FASD can totally change the way we see kids who seem troubled. We move from maybe judgment to, well, to trying to genuinely understand.
And that leaves us with a really important question to think about, doesn't it? Based on what happened with Marcus. How many other young people out there might be struggling silently with similar kinds of undiagnosed conditions, hidden behind those easy labels like defiant or rebellious? It really pushes us to think about the wider impact societally of focusing on root causes instead of just, reacting to the symptoms we see on the surface.